What's up, y'all? It's Aiden with Shade Tree Motorworks over here with the 98 Ford Expedition 5.4 liter motor in it. Had some codes originally. I came and checked it out, scanned it, pulled the codes. I had a lean code and a cylinder number 2 misfire code, a couple other codes as well. Yeah, I'm just pulling up the data for it. 5.4 liter. Had a slight, very subtle stumble and a very subtle misfire that seemed like it was intermittently misfiring almost. Sometimes it was missing real hard and sometimes it wasn't. You could notice the misfire. It got worse as the AC was put on, so when the vehicle was under a load, an additional load, the misfire would get substantially worse, where you could notice it a lot worse. First thing that I did was just smoke tested the system. These 5.4 liter motors are known to have intake leaks, and there's a lot of hoses, rubber hoses up in the intake area, as you can see. So I induced smoke into the intake system, did the typical plastic, couple plastic bags covering the outlet where the air intake, where the smoke would exit out of, and just induce smoke through this hose right here off of the brake booster. Disengages off of the brake booster, induce smoke. Didn't find really any leaks that were noticeable and or out of the ordinary. You know, some little components are going to allow some air to come through as a normal function of the vehicle, like the EGR valve and things like that. So when I saw that there was no smoke billowing out of anywhere, I went ahead and retrieved the fault codes. So as you can see, there's a PO302, PO171, evap code, PO442, which we kind of were ignoring because, I mean, that could be part of it, but it also couldn't, you know, that could be, the PO442 code could be caused by the same reason that it's misfiring, or it could not be. Whereas the PO171 and the PO302 are definitely drivability, misfire related issues that we can get to the bottom of. So what I did is I went ahead and checked fuel pressure. Check fuel pressure on these vehicles. All you do is come to the passenger side fuel rail, and you can put your adapter in, your fuel pressure adapter in onto this port right here. It screws on. When I screwed onto the port, I noticed that there was a slight bleed down of fuel pressure with the key on, engine off. So being that there was a cylinder misfire, there was a cylinder number 2 misfire, went ahead and partially disassembled the fuel rail by taking up these 2 8mm bolts right here, loosened those, moved those to the side, and very gently pull up the fuel rail only on this side, while trying to make sure that we maintain fuel pressure by keeping these fuel injectors inside of the fuel rail and just taking them up from the intake. When I did that, I cut on the engine, and I will show you in another video, or in another clip on this same video, what I found. But what I found is that this cylinder number 2, so on these vehicles, cylinders are 1, 2, 3, 4, then the other side is 5, 6, 7, and 8. What I noticed is that on this number 2 cylinder, that fuel injector was bleeding down. It's a common issue on a lot of older vehicles that I've noticed, and it's not hard to diagnose, but people seem to, you know, forget to check that or something like that. I don't know. I was always taught to just put some sort of a metal object or something and listen for the fuel injector firing by putting your ear. So you take a screwdriver and put it right here, and you listen for the injector to click. But that's obviously not a real diagnostic way to check it. So what I did, once again, is I pulled up the fuel rail smoothly, made sure all the injectors were still in the fuel rail while keeping my fuel gauge on the fuel rail port. Turned on the key, made sure that it was still holding the same fuel pressure amount that it was, so it was bleeding down at the same in the same amount of time. The bleed down was similar as it was when everything was connected in factory. And then I just monitored the injectors. Obviously, being that there was a cylinder 2 misfire, all I really mainly focused on was cylinder number 2, but you obviously want to double check all the injectors to make sure there's no bleed down. And sure enough, this injector was dripping. You'd see maybe 1 or 2 little slight drips in a minute. But as you could imagine, you know, every time that injector's firing, on and off, if there's every couple minutes, there's a couple extra drips that are dripping into the cylinder. Over time, that's just unburnt fuel. It's just confusing the computer, and the computer's not knowing what to do. So yeah, so that's how we got to the bottom of this one. Like I said, 98 Ford Expedition, the 5.4 liter motor in it. Quick diagnostic. I mean, you know, I've seen shops chase things like this and take months to figure them out, and you know, it can take not too long. But yeah, you know, follow that step process. Do the simple stuff first. Like I said, for me, the easiest thing to check first was going to be to smoke the system. Didn't see anything crazy there. And then because there's a fuel related issue, you know, it doesn't hurt to check the fuel pressure. Check your fuel pressure, check your fuel volume. So fuel volume is when say your fuel pressure is at 40 psi with the engine running. Say you snap the throttle and the fuel pressure drops, then you know you got a fuel volume issue, because the fuel pressure is always supposed to stay the same. Obviously in this situation, I kind of knew just from experience, I was looking for a fuel bleed down. So that's what I did. I just monitored the fuel bleed down, and once I saw that the bleed down was excessive, I knew where to go and look. So just a quick diagnostic tip and trick for you younger techs, or maybe even, you know, journeyman techs or older techs, whatever. We're just DIYers trying to get to the bottom of the problem on your vehicle. Yeah. So thank you for your time. Please like and subscribe. Shade Tree Motorworks. Have a blessed one.
So as you can see here, this is your cylinder number 2 fuel injector on this 5.4 motor. You can see down there that there's a little bit of wetness as that drips. You can see that there's some wetness down there, which was a good indicator that this was in fact the issue, the bleeding down issue. But obviously wanted to confirm 100%. So what I did is I once again turned on the key on, engine off, and just monitored the fuel injector to see if there was any sort of a drip of fuel that would be dropping off as the as the fuel pressure sat inside the injector. Obviously, there could be a number of different reasons why the fuel is bleeding off, whether it's a fuel pump or fuel leaks elsewhere. So you want to confirm.